Today is Monday, July 21, 2025. We are going to read the story of Nella McClung together. This story was written by Shantel Ivits and it comes from BC Reads, Order to Literacy, Fundamental English, Reader 4.
In 1882, a 9-year-old girl from the prairies was at a community picnic.
In 1992, a nine-year-old girl from the was at the community picnic. Prairies.
In 1882, a 9-year-old girl from the prairies was at a community picnic.
In 1992, a nine-year-old girl from the prairies was at a community picnic. Prairies, picnic. From the prairies was in 1992 a nine-year-old girl from the prairies was at the community picnic.
The summer sun was high in the sky.
The summer sun was high in the sky.
People sat on tablecloths spread over the green grass.
People sat on tablecloths spread over the green grass.
They ate sandwiches and watermelon.
They
drank tea and lemonade. And boys were lining up for a race.
And boys were lining up for a race. And boys. And boys were lining up for a race. And boys were lining up for a race.
The 9-year-old girl wanted to run in that race.
The 9-year-old girl wanted to run in that race.
But she was told that races were for boys only.
Race.
Girl wanted to run in that race. But she was told that races were for boys only.
Races were for boys. Races were for boys only.
It was not nice for girls to run. Their skirts might fly up, and their legs might show.
Their skirts might fly up, and their legs might show.
A fire was lit inside her that day.
A fire was lit inside her that day. A fire was lit inside. A fire was lit inside. Was lights lit The fire was lit. The fire was lit inside her that day. Inside her that day.
One day, she would see to it that women could do the things that men could do, like vote.
One day she would see. One day she would see to it. She would see it. She would see to.
Her next day. One day, she would see to it that
She would see to it
women could do the things that men could.
that would that woman could do the things that woman could do the things that man could do, like vote.
Like vote.
Like vote.
Her name was Nellie McClung.
Her name was Nellie McClung. Her name was Nellie McClung. One day she would see to it. One day, one day, one day she would see to it. She would see to it that one day she would see to it that woman woman could do the things that man could do, like vote. Her name was Nella McClung. Nellie McClung.
Running in races wasn't the only thing girls weren't allowed to do.
Running in race wasn't the only thing girls weren't allowed to do.
Back then, it was illegal for women to vote.
It was illegal for women to vote.
Be in government.
Be in government.
Own property.
Own property.
Or go to university.
Or go to university.
This is because men were thought to be more reasonable than women.
This is because men were thought to be more reasonable than women.
Only men were reasonable enough to take part in the world of government and business.
Only men were reasonable enough to take part in the world of government and business. This is because men were thought because men were thought to be more reasonable than women. This is because men were thought to be more reasonable than women. Only men were reasonable enough to take part in the world of governments and business.
Women were seen as emotional.
Women were seen as emotional.
This made them, quotes, more fit for the world of homemaking and childcare. Were seen as emotional. This made them, quotes, more fit.
This made them, quote, more fit for the world of homemaking and childcare. This made them, quote, more fit for the world of homemaking and childcare. This is because men were thought to be more reasonable than women. Women were seen as emotional. Women were seen as emotional. Only men were reasonable enough to take part in the world of government and business. Women were seen as emotional. This made them more fit for the world of homemaking and childcare. Nilla McClung.
For the world of homemaking and childcare. When Nellie grew up, she poked holes in these old ideas.
When Nellie,
For the world of homemaking and childcare. When Nellie grew up,
when Nellie grew up,
she poked holes
she poked, she poked holes
in these old ideas.
in these old ideas. She poked holes in this old idea. Poke, hole, hole. She poked hole in this old idea. When
Nellie grew up,
when Nellie grew up,
she poked holes
she poked holes
in these old ideas.
in these old ideas.
She spoke to large crowds in favor of women's right to vote.
She spoke to large. She spoke to large crowds. She spoke to large crowds in favor of a woman's right to vote. She spoke to large crowds in favor. Crowd is in favor. She spoke to large crowd in favor of woman's rights. She spoke to large crowd in favor of a woman's right to vote. She spoke to large crowd in favor of a woman's right in favor of a woman's right vote.
Some Canadians worried that women's rights would lead to the breakdown of the family.
Some Canadians worried that women's rights would lead to breakdown of the family.
With a colorful hat on her head and a charming sense of humor.
With a colorful hat or her hat and charming sense of humor.
Nellie changed hearts and minds.
Nellie changed hearts and mind with colorful hat. With a colorful hat on her hat, and a charming sense of humor, charming sense of humor, and a charming sense of humor. Nellie changed heart and mind. Nellie changed heart and mind. Nellie changed hearts and mind.
Women's rights activists in Europe and America often used violence to get their point across.
Women's rights activities in Europe and America often used violence to get their point across. Violence to get their point across. Women's rights activities. Activities.
activist,
activist, activists,
activist,
women's right activists, women's right activists in Europe and America often used violence to get their across. Point across. Get their point across.
Nellie used humor
Nellie used humor
instead. She starred in a play where she debated men's right to vote.
She started in play where she debated the man's right to vote. She starred
starred,
starred. She starred in
starred,
she starred in a play. She starred in play where she debate
debate,
debate
debate,
debate man's right to vote. She starred she starred in a play. She starred in a play where she debated man's right debated where she debated man's right to vote.
She began by telling the men how nice they looked.
She began by telling the men how nice they looked.
Then she pointed out that most of the people in prison were men.
Then she pointed out that most of people in prison were men.
And men made up only a small number of the people who went to church.
And men made up only small number of people who went to church. And man made up only a small number of people who went to church.
How could these people be trusted with politics?
How could these people be trusted with politics?
Big crowds came to see Nellie's play.
Big crowds came to see Nellie's play.
They roared with laughter.
They roar, roar, roar,
Roar,
roar,
roar,
roar.
roar.
They roared with laughter.
How could these people be trusted with politics? Big crowds came to see Nellie's play.
Big crowds came to see Nellie's play.
They roared with laughter.
They roared with laughter. They roared with laughter.
It became fashionable to support women's rights.
It became fashionable. It became fashionable to support women's rights. Fashionable. It became fashionable to support women's rights. Women learning to vote. Learning to vote.
White women were finally allowed to vote in federal elections in 1918.
White women were finally allowed to vote in federal election in 1980.
As a result,
1918.
white women were finally allowed to vote in federal elections in 1918. In 1918.
1918. White women were finally allowed to vote in federal election in 1918.
As a result of racist laws,
As a result of racist, as a result of racist laws,
women of color and Aboriginal women would not be allowed to vote until much later.
As a result of racist laws, women of color and Aboriginal woman,
Aboriginal.
Aboriginal,
Aboriginal.
Aboriginal,
Aboriginal.
Aboriginal,
Aboriginal.
Aboriginal woman of color, and Aboriginal woman would not be allowed to vote until much later. As a result of racist laws, women of color, and Aboriginal women would not be allowed to vote until much later.
In 1921, Nellie served as one of the first female MLAs in the government of Alberta.
In 1921, Nellie served as one of the first female MLAs in the government of Arvata. Served as one of the first female MLAs. Nellie's in 1921. In 1921, Nellie served as one of the first female MLA in the government of Arvata.
It was often said that women's involvement in politics would lead to divorce.
It was often said that women's involvement in politics would lead to divorce. It often said that. It was often said that women's involvement in politics would lead to divorce.
Nellie and her husband Wes proved those claims wrong.
Nellie and her husband proved those claims wrong. Nellie and her husband proved those claims wrong.
Wes was proud of his wife.
Wes was proud of his wife. Husband Wes. Wes was proud of his wife. I don't mind being Mr. Nellie McClung. I don't mind being Mr. Nellie McClung. He said he'd say.
I don't mind being Mr. Nellie McClung, he'd say with a smile.
He said with a smile. Nellie and her husband was proved those claiming wrong. He was proud of his wife. I don't mind being Mr. Nellie McClung. Nellie McClung. He said. He'd say it with a smile. He'd say it with a smile.
One day, Nellie's friend Emily Murphy invited some friends to her house for tea.
One day, Nellie's friend Emily Murphy invited some friends to her house for tea.
They talked about how unfair it was that women were not allowed to sit in the Senate.
They talked about how unfair it was that women were not allowed to sit in the Senate.
This is because women were not seen as persons in the eyes of the law.
This is because women were not seen as persons in the eyes of the law. This is because this is because women were not seen as a person. This is because women were not seen as person in the eyes of the law.
The women decided to take the matter to court.
The woman decided to take the matter to court. The woman decided to take the matter to court.
After a long battle,
After a long battle,
they won the case in 1929.
they won the case in 1929.
But Nellie wasn't finished.
But Nellie wasn't finished.
The end is not yet, she said.
The end is not yet. The end is not yet, she said. The woman decided to take the matter to court. Courts. The woman decided to take the matter to court. After a long battle, they won the case in 1929. But Nellie wasn't finished. The end is not yet, she said.
Even though women had won many legal rights,
Even though women had won many legal rights,
they were still not treated as equal to men.
they were still not treated as equal to men. They were still not treated as equal to men.
This was especially true for women of color.
This was especially true for women of color.
Unlike most women's rights activists of her time,
Unlike most women's rights activists of her time,
Nellie called for an end to racism.
Nellie called for an end to racism. This was especially true for women of color. Unlike most women's rights activists, unlike most women rights activists of all time, Nellie called for an end to racism. Nellie called for an end to racism.
Even as she grew older and her health declined,
Even as she grew older, and her health declined,
she kept writing and speaking for equal rights.
She kept writing and speaking for equal rights.
Nellie said,
Nellie said,
because I've got a bad heart.
because I've got a bad heart.
My doctor has told me not to write.
My doctor has told me not to write.
I assume he meant books, so I keep busy on letters.
I assume he meant books, so I kept busy on letter. I assume he meant books, so I kept busy on letters.
Editorials.
Editorials.
And messages.
And the messages. Because Nellie said, because I've got a bad heart. Because I've got a bad heart, my doctor has told me not to write. I assume he meant books, so I kept busy on letter, editorial, and message.
If she hadn't died in 1951,
If she hadn't died in 1951, if she hadn't died in 1951, she would probably still be fighting for a woman's right today.
She would probably still be fighting for women's rights today.
If she hadn't died in 1951, she would probably still be fighting for women's right today.